Hey guys, build report for the Quaverato. Fairly certain I'm saying that right. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced it in the last video, but if I'm not, sorry, I'll apologise again. I looked up what quaver means. It's a word I've never heard of before. Apparently it means to have like a shaky voice, so that sort of is in line with how a tremolo kind of sounds, I suppose. So I'm going to talk about the just the build process first, and then we'll have a listen to it. And just to start off with, the most obvious thing going on with this one is it's blue. I actually thought I made a comment. I think I made a comment in the last video, or maybe online, that I wasn't sure why they didn't finish the actual enclosure. It comes as a bare metal. You can see the grain of the metal in that, so it's kind of like sheet metal that's been pressed, formed, and I just didn't understand why they didn't finish. Like, it looked like it wasn't finished, and considering the amount of engineering and meticulous detail with this pedal, with the kit and the pedal as a commercial pedal, I just didn't understand why they just didn't finish it off with paint or whatever. And I can't remember his name. One of the guys from Zeppelin Design Lab said that's the way it's actually supposed to be. It's actually meant to have an industrial look. So whoops, wasn't actually supposed to paint it, but whatever. It still looks pretty good. So that's my little mistake on that one. So you don't actually have to paint it. It's actually how it's supposed to look if you buy one. You know, I just probably get a little bit powder coat happy as soon as I see a bare enclosure. I go, right, what color am I going to do it? You know, and even though it usually ends up blue, yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think I said in the last video, don't worry too much about following the build doc. It's very long. It's like, you know, like 80 pages or something like that. Oh, you don't need to do it. Just dig into it. You do. This is not a typical do-it-yourself pedal build. In fact, in a few places, I felt like I was being a little bit schooled because I actually haven't done the particular procedure that they were explaining in the build doc before, so it was something new for me. You do need to follow it, and I would encourage you to put your ego aside, because although it's easy to build, it's a complicated effect, and you don't want to stuff it up during the process of actually assembling the pedal, because I've got a feeling that if you had to come back and fix something that you stuffed up early on, it could be a bit of a nightmare. So just make sure you follow that build doc properly. That's my advice as far as the build doc goes. Even if you're a seasoned veteran of pedal building, you should follow it, because you know, there's a very specific order. It's well engineered and it needs to be followed. The build doc needs to be followed from start to end. So I'd also like to say at this point too, hats off to Zeppelin for actually making this a do-it-yourself project. They don't need to do that. They could just sell it as a commercial product and focus on selling it as a commercial product. They don't have to make this available to us. And at the moment, the price is $89 for the do-it-yourself kit. It's $189 for the commercial product. So you're effectively saving $100 US for having a skill. They're rewarding you for having a skill and having the knowledge to be able to assemble something. I think that's great. I really like when commercial pedal manufacturers actually make that option available. I think it's really good. It's encouraging for us. Like I said, you've got a skill and you get to save a bit of money, and because you know how to put pedals together. I think that's great. So that's really good. They don't have to do that, you know. So I'm just going to get the enclosure off. So to get that off, you take the 4 screws out, obviously, and then they've just got these plastic nuts which you can just get off with your hand on the input and output jacks. So you just take them off, and it kind of just slides out. Like that, and then you pull it off, so you can see that it kind of hooks onto the threading of the input and output jacks. The case is what I'm saying. The back plate hooks onto the threading of the input and output jacks, And as you can see on the inside, there's a lot to do. I mean, you have to assemble all this yourself. There's a couple of incidents where I felt maybe a little bit lost, but it was, like it wasn't difficult to get back on track again. So yeah, I mean, it's not like, considering the complexity, it's really simple to follow, put it that way. In particular, if you follow the build doc, like I said, if you just follow it step by step, you'll be fine. There's a few things in this that I hadn't done before, like after you calibrate, you put a blob of solder on those. There's two tiny little bare pads that you have to put a blob of solder across once you've calibrated it. A few things like that, which I thought was pretty cool. And that chip that they're actually using, because it is a digital chip, but the signal path is analog, so don't be worried. It's not a digital tremolo. It's an Atmega 328P. Why does that sound familiar? I think, is that the Arduino Atmega? I think it might be. Yeah, so that's actually pretty impressive. I think it is, or maybe it's one of those. Atmega 328P. Eric, I'm sure Eric will jump in on that. He knows a lot about these sorts of chips. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Arduino chip, which, from what Eric's told me, is pretty limited memory-wise. So it's actually pretty impressive that they've got something that sounds pretty cool from something like that. I'm interested to. I didn't really notice this, but they've actually got two film caps on those two. There must be a specific reason why they've used film caps on those two, and then MLCCs on all the rest, which are ceramic, the modern ceramic capacitor. Lots of info in the build doc too. Oh, there's another film cap I just noticed up the top there as well. Lots of info on the build doc too, about everything. About tremolos, history of tremolos, all that sort of stuff. So even if you're not buying it, go and check out the build doc. The fastidious detail in this kit was amazing. Like, I was pretty impressed. Like that, just as an example of one of the things that I was quite impressed with. See that little plastic tube around the LED legs? It comes with that pre-cut to the right size, fits perfectly. And the reason for that too is so that you don't have to worry about the distance. If you put that plastic tubing on, you put the LED in, and the legs are popping out, you solder them on, you snip them off, it's in the right spot. And it did turn out in the right spot, although I do see one issue. And it's not actually because of the LED, but the sticker is cut the hole is cut very precisely. So mine was actually the slightest bit off, and it's just pushing the sticker out slightly. Very minor thing, but yeah, I thought that was amazing. And even it comes with a piece of paper as well that you put. Might be able to see that if I can get it. Yeah, see that bit of paper running across with the black sticky tape on it underneath the pots. That's to stop the pots touching the back of the PCBs, you probably know. But I put a little bit of, I wasn't actually fully convinced that was actually going to stop the any sharp solder joints. So I actually added a bit of tape as well, because I was just actually worried it was actually going to come through and touch the back of the pot, because paper, you can kind of puncture. I don't know, I find that Nido electrical tape to be really good. Nido is the brand that I use, a Japanese brand of electrical tape. It's really good. It's like it's almost like, I guess it's like nylon and not plastic. Some of the other electrical tapes are sort of plastic. Anyway, we're off topic. So yeah, it comes with a piece of paper, and you just cut. It's folded in half. You cut it in half, and then the longer piece goes on the 4, and then the shorter piece goes under the 3. So I don't know. You might not be able to see it there, but there's another piece on the 3. So everything comes cut exactly the size that the wire, the ribbon cable on the foot switches. It just comes with everything you could possibly want, except for solder and a soldering iron and all that sort of stuff, of course. I was really impressed with the amount of thought that's been put into the kit. Like I could imagine, because as you know, I provide some kits as well. I can imagine the what's the word? You'd have to be so methodical on how you're actually putting these kits together for people, because I can tell you, like when I do kits, I don't do one at a time. That's just a pain in the backside. I do like maybe 10 at a time or 20 at a time, because then you can just go 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2, you know, like all the resistors, all the capacitors, and you put them in little buckets like this, so it's quicker, which is probably what they did with this too. But just the amount of components, you wouldn't want to stuff it up, because if you stuff up one, you stuff up 20 as well. So I'm impressed with how that's, you know, how they've gone about it. So yeah, I mean, you can look at actually what is inside this thing. Like I said, digitally controlled tremolo, analog path, relay bypass, momentary and bypass modes on the front. There's all sorts of information about what the well, there's some information about what the actual dials do. I'll be guessing a few of these because you know, like ones I haven't seen before, like, you know, like volume. I've never seen that knob before. Haha, very funny. No, like you know, like harmonic mix, which is something new to me. I think they said it's something to do with what was it? The frequency at which the modulation takes effect, or something like that. And multiply is not one I've heard of before. It might just be a fancy name for like a fine tuning knob on the spacing or the depth, something like that. Depth is obviously just the strength of the effect, etc., etc. And it's got tap tempo as well. Tap tempo as well. So I'll demonstrate that too in the sound demo. So that's a few things. You want more info? I'm not going to sit here and just reel off everything that they already say on their website. Go and check out the effect on their website and the info and the build doc. Read the build doc. Like I said before, even if you're not interested in building the effect, have a read. It's got some information on the history of tremolos and stuff like that. So everything is PCB mounted. I know everyone's, you know, paranoid about PCB mounted hardware. It depends how rough you are with your hardware, I suppose. You know, but I don't know. I'm not too worried about that as far as longevity goes. I think it will last just fine. You know, the jacks are also held in place by the nuts as well, so that the stress isn't completely on the PCB. This one is. That's probably the DC jack would probably be the one that I'd worry about the most. But again, it depends how you handle your gear. I'm pretty careful with it. I mean, if you're just chucking your effects around and stuff, then whether it's PCB mounted or not, you kind of deserve what you get in that respect. You know, I mean, just take care of your things and they'll last a long time. It doesn't matter whether it's a pedal or a car or whatever. Alright, so most importantly, what does it sound like? I'm not going to mic this one up because there's so many switches and stuff. I might have comments and things to say. So down the bottom here you can see that LED's flashing, so I'm pretty sure that's the time. Let's just switch it on and see what happens. There we are. It reminds me a bit of a tremulous loon, just as far as the tone goes. Well, how it's set at the moment, you can actually change the tone, as I said. On the inside there's those switches, the dip switches you can change. And of course this can change, the foot switch here can change from momentary to toggle. So if we go to momentary, it's going to switch off obviously because now it's momentary. So if you're playing a song, and this is hard to do with my hands, but you'll get the idea. You can use that with your foot. So it just jumps pretty much straight in when you hit the button. There's no fade in as such. It's interesting though, so you can put it back to toggle and then just switch it back on again. So how's the tap tempo work? Probably something that people are going to be interested to see. Now that's interesting. I did a long time just then on the tap tempo, and it actually it went faster than what I did. Maybe it's because the settings aren't long enough up the top here. So let's just see that again. Oh, it worked that time. Must have just got confused. actually go. It's got a pretty long time for a tremolo. What's the longest we can do? Wow, look at that. What about the harmonic mix? What does that do? Let's have a listen. I'll just turn it up a bit so we can hear it. Look, to me, as it's set at the moment, that's a pretty subtle effect. I can hear that there's some sort of, I don't know, treble content added. You have to look up the actual function of that dial to see what it's actually doing. It's not one I've ever had on a pedal before, and I just have no idea. So actually, at the moment, we're on triangle 2. So if we do something that's a bit smoother, like sine. Sound a bit more like a traditional tremolo. And you can tell what's happening with that LED. I was going to actually hook it up to the oscilloscope to see examine the output, but this can give you a bit of a rough idea of what's actually happening with your signal anyway. So that's sine. So this is ramp down, not triangle. This is ramp up. This is, I can't see over the thing, this is triangle. So it should have a sharp peak and a sharp trough, which it does, and this is square. Straight on and off. It's a bit of a robotic sort of type of tremolo, but I don't mind it in some particular situations. Probably on faster settings with more of a peak and less of a trough. That's what that situation. That's how I've got the dials configured at the moment. So what about this multiplier up the top here? A little confused as to what this actually does, but I'm sure I can work it out if we just play around with it. Getting faster as I go up. Getting slower as I go down. Wow, that's very slow. So even if we leave the rate on exactly how it is at the moment, but we crank it up. Yeah, so it's like it's a fine-tuning sort of a fine-tuning knob. So if you're going to be doing really, really slow timing, you can put the multiplier down, and if you want to do something that's like ridiculously fast, you'd put this multiplier up. So like at the moment, I don't know if you can see in the video. Actually, I'm looking in the video and it looks like a relatively slow flash, but actually in person it's like a strobe light. So it might be the camera not picking up how fast that actually is flashing, but it's flashing incredibly fast, almost to the point that I can't tell that it's flashing. Like when maybe like a halogen light in your house is doing some funny stuff, or it's about to die. Not halogen, LED light is about to die, and there's that really fast strobe light flash. It's like that. Adds this sort of quiver, which you might be able to hear. Well, that's pretty obvious now. That harmonic mix on this particular setting actually makes a very, very obvious difference. And then you've just got depth as well, which is just the strength of the effect. So on that setting, obviously, you can barely hear it. So that's like an underwater sort of effect. So you've just got this in and out of phase switch now. To be honest, I'm not totally sure what that would mean. I would have thought that it would swap the peak for the trough and the trough for the peak, like just flip flip your the wave shape around. But I'm not sure it's actually doing that. You can see it makes no difference to the actual LED. So it's a more subtle effect. Have a look in the manual to see if you can find any more info on that, or maybe if you're a tremolo aficionado, you might just know what that means anyway, what it actually does. So thanks again to Zeppelin Design Labs for sending in the Quaverato. Had a great time with it. I told them I wouldn't get time to build it for quite some time because I've got so much on my plate at the moment. It's ridiculous. The to-do list never ends. But when it came in, I saw the kit and everything that was involved. I just thought, you know what? I got to put this together because it looks like a ton of fun, and it was a ton of fun. Also, another thumbs up to them for making this available to us. They don't have to do that. They can just sell it to guitarists. They don't have to think about our little niche world that we've got going. So that was great for them to do that too, just to make it available to us at a quite significantly discounted price. I think that's a really commendable act. So thanks for that, Zeppelin, and thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the overview. Hope it gave you an idea of what's involved building the pedal and how it sounds, so that you can make up your mind whether you want to get one or not. I'll leave a link in the description below in case you can't find it, but you could probably just look up, if you know how to use Google, Zeppelin Design Labs Quaverato, and you'll see the product page, but I'll put it there for your convenience anyway. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Tons more build reports and sound. You can't see them, they're up there. There's a whole bunch of pedals that I need to get through, and the clan comes back very soon, so I better get on to the next one. Cheers guys.